Carolina Congressman Pat Harrigan. Congressman, good morning. And how are you feeling right now about where we are in the process?
Cheryl, good morning. Thanks for having me on. Look, I feel pretty good about where we are in the process. And I think given the video that we just saw from Senator Barrasso as well as the Speaker of the House, let's keep this in perspective, right? Over the next 10 years, which is the budgetary period that the reconciliation process is predicated upon, we are going to spend $87 trillion over the next 10 years from the federal government. We're talking about cutting $1.5 to $2.5 trillion. This isn't that heavy of a lift. This is something we should be able to accomplish.
All right, so we'll see how the week goes because obviously, you know, House Ways and Means, that committee is going to be a key point for all of this as we move forward. I want to ask you about this as well. So Mexico's president, Claudia Sheinbaum, rejecting President Trump's offer for the U.S. military to help battle drug trafficking and violent cartels. Watch this.
He said, "How can we help you fight drug trafficking? I propose that the United States Army enter to help you." And you know what I told him? No, President Trump. The territory is inviolable. Sovereignty is inviolable. Sovereignty is not for sale. We can collaborate, we can work together, but you on your territory, we on ours.
Congressman, interesting. So you just introduced a new bill that would cut off cartels financially through wire transfer services like Western Union. But react to what she said. She made it very clear we can work together, but she has no interest in having U.S. troops in Mexico. Is there something else you think that she's saying there?
Look, I think from just a top line perspective, our sovereignty is inviolable too, and it's being violated each and every day. President Trump has done a fantastic job of actually shutting down the flow of illegal immigrants across our southern border, over 99% reduction in his term compared to President Biden's. But look, I introduced the Financial Intelligence and National Security Act because if we really want to deal with the flow of problems that ultimately lay the foundation of a degradation of law and order in our country, we have to go after the financial streams of drug traffickers, human traffickers, and narco terrorists. That's exactly what the FINS Act actually does, because we've got so much money floating through these remittance programs, through these wire transfer organizations, companies that are not regulated like banks. They don't need to know their customer. They do not need and have to report by law suspicious activity. And just to lay the foundation for this, we got to understand the volume of remittances just to Latin America alone exceeds Walmart's entire global revenue each and every year. And estimates are that 8 to 20% of that remittance amount is actually for nefarious criminal purposes. We have to stop this if we're serious about our national security.
And I like what you're saying here about we need a long-term solution. You know, shutting down the border, option one, but obviously getting long-term solutions in place so this doesn't happen again under another president in 10 years, for example. I've got Liz Peek on set. She's got a question for you, sir.
Good morning, Congressman, and thank you for joining us. Has President Trump's designation of these cartels as terrorist organizations helped your cause here? I mean, doesn't that make it easier to cut off the payments to these groups? Second question, what about crypto? Would your bill actually interrupt the flow of crypto payments to these organizations?
So, yes, I think that President Trump's designation of some of these cartels as foreign terrorist organizations absolutely gives the United States government leverage to change the paradigm that currently exists between Mexico and the United States of America. We talked and we saw how President Sheinbaum right now is saying, look, there's a line here. We're going to mind our side. You're going to mind yours. Look, the reality is we need to do what's in the best interests of the United States of America. And President Trump will ultimately win this discussion because, as he said many times, we hold all the cards here. So we are going to get to the end state that we are looking for. But I would say no, this is not going to impact cryptocurrency, primarily because what we're doing is we are proposing through this legislation to treat these wire transfer companies like Western Union and RIA and dozens of others like them, providing services like them, like banks. All we're saying is, look, the 1970 Bank Secrecy Act needs to be amended in order to bring these companies into compliance, make them collaborate and communicate with law enforcement when there's very clearly nefarious activity going on. It is narrowly tailored. It does not touch cryptocurrency.
But you know, these groups, nefarious groups around the world, have been using crypto for years for operations. You have foreign countries, I'm thinking about North Korea, that uses crypto. So it's certainly a big piece of what you're discussing here and what Liz brought up. Congressman Pat Harrigan, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Hey, thanks for having me. And look, we'll get to cryptocurrency. Crypto actually wants to be regulated. It's just we got to take one step at a time here in Washington. We have a very clear pathway on wire transfer services that are supporting narco-terrorism, human trafficking, and the drug cartels.
All right, Congressman, thank you so much. Appreciate it.